Hello. For those who know little or nothing about me, I'm Eric. I was ordained priest in the Church of England in 1983, and at that time I was working in industry as an electronics engineer. I continued working in electronics because after I was ordained, because I believe that faith has to be as relevant on a Monday morning as it is on a Sunday morning. I have, though, worked for the church, but not on its payroll. I was vicar of Little Malvern Priory for about 30 years. I was a chaplain in the RAF Air Cadets for longer than that. I won't go into how long that was. And a canon for Worcester Cathedral, and now retired from that, and I'm sole canon emeritus. And I finished my working career in electronics after being made redundant 4 times, and I finished up as a project manager. Well, this is the first of a series of thoughts that I'm sharing with you over the next few weeks. The Church of England, the Christian church totally actually, is now preparing for the climax of its liturgical year, the week before Easter, called Holy Week. It is the highlight of the whole of the Christian calendar. Now, I start with a little story. There was a vicar talking to a group of small children, and he asked them a question. What is it that's small? It's furry. It has long ears, a white tail, doesn't walk, but hops. And there was silence. And a hand was raised very tentatively and apprehensively. And the vicar focused, because this was the only response he got, focused on the owner of the hand. And he said, right, now tell me. And the little girl said, well, I know because you're asking the question that it should be Jesus, but it sounds very much to me like it was a rabbit. And as far as the little girl was concerned, she knew that the vicar was expecting to be told it was Jesus because he was a vicar. But to her, it didn't sound like that at all. And so she described what she actually thought was the answer. It didn't fit the person that she thought he was going to be expecting. So who was he? And it's a question that's been asked by mankind ever since Jesus was born. He didn't fit the picture that they had of what they were expecting. So who was this? Well, just let's presume that everyone has a Christian Bible sooner or later. It's the world's widest selling book ever. And whoever has that book eventually asks themselves the question, who was Jesus? I presume that you're in the general public that has got a Bible. So let's start with that particular question. John the Baptizer, whose role was preparing people for the coming of someone that had been promised way back in their ancient scriptures, he wasn't sure who this man Jesus was either. John was in prison because his whistles blowing had upset the king. So he sent his friends to go and ask Jesus, are you the one who is to come? Or do we look for someone else? John wasn't sure. But he wasn't by any means alone in asking his questions about who Jesus was. At one point, even Jesus asked people, and he asked his friends, who do people say that I am? There was a range of answers that they offered him, and this revealed a lot of uncertainty by a lot of people. And that uncertainty has continued ever since. At the beginning of the 20th century, Dr. Albert Schweitzer, he who founded a leper hospital on the west coast of mid-Central Africa, he did a lot of research into that question, and it resulted in book of his, over 600 pages, The Quest of the Historical Jesus. It went quiet after that book was published. Everybody thought it was the work. But then about 50 years ago, they started to do more research and more books were produced. And finally, it's continued, obviously, since then. And there is a conclusion reached. And the conclusion that has been reached is no conclusion can be reached. There's an interesting comment, though, about those biographies that have been produced, and that is that they tend to reflect the beliefs and the personality of the authors. In other words, they are autobiographies of the authors. At the end of his book, Schweitzer says this: he comes to us as one unknown. He came to men who knew him not. He says the same to us as he did to them. Follow me. That, whenever I read that, it prompts me to think about an epitaph that you probably read about yourself. Remember, friend, as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you will surely be. Prepare thyself to follow me. And some comic scrawled underneath, to follow you I'm not content until I know which way you went. And actually, Schweitzer goes on and he provides his answer. Whether they be wise or simple, he will reveal himself in the toils, the conflicts, the sufferings, which they shall pass through in his fellowship. And as an ineffable mystery, they shall learn in their own experience who he is. So, over the next few weeks of Lenten preparation for the Christian Holy Week, as we follow Jesus metaphorically in his steps through the wilderness, let's see where our thoughts take us. A prayer. Grant to us, O Christ, the courage and dedication to respond to your call to follow you, and so may we discover for ourselves who you are. Amen. Well, thanks for watching, if you have been, and look forward to seeing you next time.